awesome. It's just great. It's just perfect. I don't know that God necessarily laughs at certain changes that have to be made because of circumstances, but I get the point, right? It is a reminder that no matter how much we ever think we're in control or can predict what happens next, we are often either pleasantly or unpleasantly surprised that that's not always. Mallory and Cayenne and I had planned that after Easter, given our Lenten study around racial justice, that we would be able to craft a statement above all statements that would identify this church and designate this church as a racial justice church. That will happen. But the plan was that it would happen so that on the 29th, we could vote on it. Now, selfishly, I must admit that I was very happy about that idea for obvious reasons. After all the work that we've done, I thought it would be a great way for me to kind of have my swan song. Becoming a racial justice isn't about Claire Toomey. And so when it became obvious that we could not craft something with intentionality and integrity in the time that we had and vote on it, it was decided that this would happen after our vote. It speaks to the fact that the journey of racial justice never ends. And if we needed to be reminded of that, we certainly were this past couple of days. Where an old child traveled 200 miles out of hate and rage to annihilate the lives, the families of people of African descent once again. This is why that statement must be done with intentionality and integrity. It is also a week where there have been protests that have locally that have demanded that we pay more attention to Indigenous women who continue to disappear at numbers that are gut-wrenching. It is why that statement must be done with integrity and intentionality. I don't think there's anything I can offer today that you haven't heard out of my mouth before, except the ongoing plea that as you move into the space to vote on and accept the designation of what it means to be a racial justice church, that you take it seriously and that you recognize that this journey never ends. Feels weird to acknowledge that and then step out of that space into our space of ending this morning. I want to talk a little bit about paradox, and then maybe I'll be quiet long enough to let you ask any questions you want to ask. But Linda's in the room, and that makes me nervous. Linda Cooley. I have never been a big fan of the Book of Revelations because it has been used and abused. But when we understand the context, we are understanding that it's in the midst of empire that is continuously oppressing those who would choose to follow the way that this book is written. A book that takes a look at what the divine has to offer in terms of saying, look, I am making all things new again. And this is our fifth Sunday where the reading from John, which we use in our call to worship, is also looking at or listen to what Jesus is saying to his disciples. I am leaving and you cannot follow me, but here's what I promise will happen when I not be left alone. And I leave you with the mandate to continue to love one another as you have been loved. So even in the midst of chaos, these messages of thousands of years still come through loud and clear. I texted Cayenne this morning and I said, Cayenne, my heart breaks wondering how your spirit is this morning. Cayenne, a covenantal partner here of African descent and our moderator. Cayenne responded, and I quote as best I can, "It is really hard to have one foot in faith while the other is in despair." What a profound statement. Foot in faith with a foot in. That is both a place of hope and a place of intense anxiety, wondering where one will teeter next. I don't know about you, but it kind of describes my life right now. Having a foot in faith in terms of what I believe I am being called into, but also a foot in fear of leaving behind that which I know. Late? Humor me, just nod your heads. Pretend. I promised you, foolishly, that I would answer any questions you had of me this morning. And that may sound very trivial, but I don't think it is. Because as we come to a transition in any relationship, be it a permanent transition or a temporary or an unknown transition, always have regret about, oh, I should have said this, or I should have asked that, or I wish I had known this. And so in this space, as we are preparing to move into a transition, or I'm moving, dragging you along, I don't know how you want to really look at that, but I will take that on. I want to at least be able to invite you any questions that you may have. And if you don't have any, that's cool too. Wow. So I've said it all. All right then. Bye. Oh, Cayenne. Dang it. Cayenne.
All right. Good morning. So my question is, I mean, other than the fact that Vista Grande is the greatest church that you have been at and the greatest church that any of us have been a part of.
Are you asking me or telling me?
Well, I'm not telling you or asking you anything. I'm just reiterating the truth so far. But the question is, other than for those reasons, why are you not going to pastor a church?
I think I made mention of this. I have a multifaceted reason. The first one is basically that this church has ruined me for pastoring, right? And I say that only partially tongue in cheek. When I graduated from undergrad, I left my undergraduate schooling, university, and moved to Baltimore, surprise, surprise, and took a job for a year as a Jesuit volunteer working in a shelter for homeless women. The Jesuit Volunteers is sort of a Peace Corps base, but it was a Catholic organization where you lived in community and you shared resources and you worked for those who were in need. And the catchphrase for the Jesuit Volunteers was ruined for life. We had t-shirts and everything. Reason for that is because once I was faced with the injustices of the world and recognized what systemic injustice across the board looked like, you were ruined. Could no longer ignore what you had come to know. So when I say that this church has ruined me, it is in that context. Going to another church right now, I would be a horrible, horrible pastor. Because I would not have the patience I would need to drag another congregation into this journey. Perhaps at some point I will, but right now you have spoiled me in your willingness to take risks and to be pushed and stretched and try new things. Not that you did it without commentary, but you did it with willingness. The other part of it is my own grief in leaving. Dang it, Cayenne, if you make me cry, it's a good thing you're in Florida. My own grief will need tending. And the tendency, especially in this industrialized, pull yourself up by your bootstraps individualistic society, is that we don't do our work. But instead we ignore the pain that we hold, the loss, the grief, and we end up throwing it up someplace else on top of somebody else. And if I don't tend to my own grief in the leaving, then I can do irreparable damage to the next group with whom I'm in contact in a pastoral setting. Now, there's another piece, and that is that my call has shifted a little bit from pastoral ministry also. You know that I have been pulled into or compelled into the work of specifically racial justice. And the job that I'm taking is a gender and racial equity coordinator for the YWCA of York County, Pennsylvania. The job that is brand new. They've never had it before. It is one that hopes to weave Pittsburgh, York, Harrisburg, and Philadelphia in terms of doing work towards reparation and restoration in relationships between people of European descent and people of Latinx, African descent across southern Pennsylvania. It is a brand new position that will allow me to be more out there. Careful, careful. I mean geographically. Out there. See, Linda, I knew it. You ooze it. It's right there. Than I am here. It puts me a little bit closer to DC if any legislation needs my mouth. It puts me 1 hour from Trish King, by the way. I just thought I would tell you that as she let me know that. Former covenantal partner who is now in the DC area. And it also puts Liz and me closer to friends and family that we haven't seen, been in contact with, or spent time with for too many years. So that's the multifaceted answer to your question, Cayenne. I hope that's satisfactory. So I'm going to leave that there right now. Does that work?
That'll do for now.
How will we get our witty statements on the sign?
I can't hear you.
How will we get our witty statements on the sign?
How will you get your witty statements on the front sign? Well, you know, while I was gone, I understand that there was a little bit of a kerfuffle with the city and patrons as there was a sign that says God is queer. I didn't put that there. your pastor, Mal Everhart, came up with that. And so I have a feeling she's going to have her own little back pocket filled with witty, controversial, provocative, and neighborhood annoying statements. Yeah, so I wouldn't worry. David Nath.
So Claire, I'm sure that you probably planned for this sermon and exactly what people might ask you. So I don't have a question, but what was the most difficult question you thought of, and what's the answer?
The most difficult question I thought of was, what do I do with the person who asks a question that is so inane that Dave, I didn't give any thought to it. I didn't. And it speaks, it's actually very important. I did not give any thought to what the questions would be. And I didn't worry about it, except for Linda Coonley, who's next. And the reason is because of the nature of the relationship that we hold. That there is a level of trust and respect and understanding that I wasn't worried. Seriously, I'm making a big deal of it, but really, you've unmasked me. All right, Linda Coonley. Oh, she had her hand up before, Amanda. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Answered part of my question within your answer to Cayenne, but I belong to the YMCA.
Yes.
So, and I don't know if I even thought the YW was even around anymore. I thought they had
Right.
encompassed or something. So tell us about the YWCA.
Well, it's made up, it's the Young Women's Christian Association as opposed to young men. That's all you need to know. Yes. Whereas you notice that a lot of the YMCAs have become very community organized and are very much still involved with providing child care, camps, and recreation. They are also very much in the fitness business with memberships into their gyms, et cetera, and have become very much an industry with regard to that. So they don't have, from my perspective, as much of a community justice impact. The YWCA, their mantra is seeking gender and racial justice for all. That is the tagline of the YWCA. The YWCA is pivotal in most communities in providing shelters for women who are battered for domestic violence, for doing trainings around communities with regard to reducing domestic violence, but also working within the community in order to broaden the sense of what racial and gender equality look like. So they have a more justice-oriented, a more sort of grassroots, feet on the ground. So in addition to the 10Ks that are held to raise money, that they're very much actively involved within the community with regard to racial and gender equity. And they do a lot of yoga.
This is not a question, but it's more.
Yes, ma'am.
Would you mind wearing your robe on the 29th? And if not, why not?
Judy Gibson, I wore my robe on Easter. Oh, go to Facebook
Claire,
video. Yes.
can you repeat the question, please?
Yes, Judy Gibson would like me to wear my robe on the 29th. This has been an 8-year battle with Judy Gibson.
What do you have to say?
No, I'm going to answer. I'm going to answer.
I'll say it
Probably
for you.
not.
You have to say.
I know. Judy's, why not? One, it's really hot. This is an ongoing thing for me in church. And it is recognizing the ritual and tradition that is necessary for specific events and specific, well, I wear my collar when I'm trying to make a point in the public forum, right? I use that authority. Believe me, I do. Robes and tradition and collars have also been used and weaponized in churches. So I am grateful that you don't experience it that way, Judy. I really do. And I appreciate that. And I will take a picture with you, with me in the robe. How's that? But recognizing that church has done a lot of damage in the name of God. And that robes and collars are often used as a weapon. And that not everybody who comes into this space has been here to understand that we don't do that here. I choose not to wear it on a regular basis. Okay, Judy says she'll give me that one and I'll still give you a photo op. How's that? Okay. Nancy. Here we go.
This might be a Mallory question. How long must we continue to work to become designated as a racial justice church?
Actually, that's a really good question. And Cayenne, you can correct me if I'm off base here. You've done the work to become the Justice Church. You haven't done all the work necessary to say you're done doing the work. Nancy, it's really about crafting a statement and having the church vote on it. Our bylaws say that before we have any kind of vote, you all need to have the statement in front of you for 2 weeks before that period of time. That means you would have had to have had the statement today. And we could not put something together, again, with integrity and intention by today. So it's really, Nancy, a matter of Cayenne and Mallory and I are going to meet again, and anybody else who wishes to be on that statement making group, you can still do it. We're going to meet. I'll put in my 2 cents or my $1.50, and then as soon as that is put forward to council, and then it can go forward to the congregation. So that's the long answer. Nancy, the short answer is that once I'm gone, you and Mallory every single day until the statement is in front of council. And then you call the council every single day until the statement goes forward to the congregation. So it'll happen any time now, Nancy. Deborah or John?
Sorry. Claire,
Deborah.
since we have been, as a group, bedeviled and tormented, harried, hectored, teased, beleaguered, and otherwise chivied about a certain sports team, is there anything in fact, besides all of us, that you and Liz will miss about Colorado or Colorado Springs?
Deborah, the Broncos are playing the Ravens on December 4th at Ravens Stadium. I'll be thinking of you then. Is there anything else we'll miss besides you? Is that the question? After all that nonsense with that preemption stuff?
Besides all of us.
Besides all of you. You know, that's a hard question to answer in the midst of the fires right now, right? I'm having a little PTSD from Waldo Canyon, and it's really distressing. There's a beauty and a splendor here that cannot be denied. I mean, that, you know, we can't see it this minute because we have our windows blocked so that we can see one another. There's certain hiking and things like that, not the Broncos. Just to be very clear, in case you were wondering. Oh, is that Julia running her mouth in the background there? Okay. I'm gonna, you know, I mean, I have 2 kids who are still here. I'm gonna miss them. I have other relationships. I'm gonna miss them. Although I have to say that most of my time for the past 8 years has been so enmeshed and involved here, Deborah, that I don't think I am going to miss anything about Colorado more than Vista Grande. It's not a cop-out. I hadn't thought about it until you asked me, but that's my answer.
Yes, I want to know if you and Chris are going to do any more of those nurturing justice workshops on Zoom that we could be a part of.
Chris and I are no longer working together. I am no longer a part of Nurturing Justice. I'm going to give you the short response to that. As the COO of Nurturing Justice and a co-founder, I could not remain in that position and also work for another organization. So I had to step down, which caused a little bit of contention. And so that is not a continuation. That being said, I am still very actively involved on the national level with Secret Conversations to End Racism, working very, very closely with Velda, working as a mentor to other folks who are coming up to be facilitators. And I would imagine that at some point, as those programs become more developed, I plan on also, to the best of my ability, being involved in any kind of training that may happen out of national. And if it does, and it's a year from now, I will let you know. How's that? Okay. Come on, these are easy. This is all you got? Oh no.
Are you coming back to visit?
Am I coming to visit? Yes. So for those of you who do not know, it is standard practice that when a pastor leaves a church, that they do not have contact with people in the church for a year and vice versa. That is to allow the new pastor or semi-new pastor, in our case, an opportunity to establish her own relationships with you without any kind of triangulation or impediment or interference, intentional or not, that may happen. I will respect that for Mallory, but I have every intention, probably on the 29th of May, 2023. Of course, I'll come back. I've been here 22 years. I have 2 children who are currently, one who I know will stay in Manitoba. And I will want to come back. So, yes. And I know where you live. That's it? Okay. See, Dave, that's why I didn't have to plan. I am about to make a new thing. For those of you who have, before I got here, for those of you who have shown up just today, church is only significant when it remains fluid. Churches die when they become stagnant. I don't mean stagnant because you can't get all the butts in the pews. I mean stagnant in the ways of being prepared for something new. Change creates opportunity, possibility. And Vista Grande forever, as long as whomever is in this space or in this space continues to be open to the flow of the Spirit, which brings forward possibility and potential. We exist and continue to exist because even when every fiber of our being goes, oh, I don't want to change, but oh, that okay allows for new growth and a new thing. Do your work, do your grieving, do your angst, do your anger, do your annoyance, do your frustration, and then allow the newness and the potential and possibility to enter the story for the next new thing. Amen.
Amen.